Today I thought it would be great fun to do a project that you can work on over the summer and throughout the summer, and that is the project of, or craft of, making your own paper beads. And this is another one of those projects where you don't have to have any special supplies other than paper and glue and some toothpicks, which most of us have at the house, all of us, even the kind of paper that just comes in the mail, again, works very well. You can't have it to be too thick a paper like cardboard like we were using before, but something that is and not quite so lightweight. Newsprint doesn't work very well, and you'll see why in a bit, but magazines, any kind of advertisements that you get, envelopes in the mail, really anything goes. Yeah, envelopes, we've got, gosh, here's my envelopes. Here's a thank you card I got that I can repurpose for some color. That's going to be the important thing. When you make your beads, you need to think about what colors you want your beads to be. Now you can, here's a sampling of a bunch of beads that I have made, and these are all different colors. The color, the paper that you choose will determine the color that your bead works into or turns into. So how we're going to do this. First, you need to get all your supplies. Get your paper that you think you're going to like. I have some patterns down here that you will, I will put on in the description, a link to them in the description for a PDF, so you can cut those out and make your own patterns if you like, but you're going to find that you really don't have to have patterns either. It's pretty simple just to cut strips of paper and make square beads. But if you want to kind of get a little interesting and try out some new things, you can try out some new things or some different shapes and make your own too. You don't have to use the things that I put out for you as well. So you're going to have your patterns, your paper, you want toothpicks, or I personally actually like a skewer. And this is, you know, for shish kebabs, these little meat skewers. Not all of us have them at home, so if you don't have that, a toothpick works really well. But I like the skewer because it's easier to hold, and it gives us a little more space when we're moving our paper around it and making our beads. You can see that our toothpicks are it's a little tiny. You're going to want a toothpick for every bead. If you do it on your skewer, you can put, you know, numerous beads or build numerous beads on your skewers that way. You're going to need scissors. You're going to need a sharp pencil is probably a good idea, but you don't have to have that. And then you're going to want to think about how you want to string your beads, and that's going to be the other thing you're going to need. You don't have to have anything for finishing. You may want to, but I'll talk about that towards the end. And then of course we've got our glue, which is what's going to hold it together. I personally like our Elmer's glue rather than the glue stick. The glue stick isn't quite as sticky. It doesn't hold things together quite as well, so you're going to need to work a little harder, but we'll also, if that's all you have, it will work, but we just have to be a little more patient with it. So to get started, you can see here, oh, and actually the other thing that you probably need is wax paper. Wax paper is nice, and again, you don't have to have it. If you don't have wax paper, maybe a little parchment paper that you'll find in the kitchen. Ask your mom or dad if you can have a little bit of this. Putting it down on your work surface helps keep the glue off your work surface. So I like to have a little bit of wax paper on my surface. Then I don't have to worry about the glue getting everywhere. The wax kind of protects your surface from getting glue on it. Okay, so let's start. I have some paper that's I've pre-cut here. You can see I've got a triangle. I have one that's kind of got this rounded end to it, and just a simple square or a rectangle, excuse me, and then one that is got these kind of curved edges to it, or kind of scalloped or fringed edges to it. I want to take my skewer. Actually, let's talk a little bit about paper and all of that too. So I can do, I have actually pre-done some paper here with some watercolor and some marker. If you want to do that, you can do that as well, and that is kind of interesting. I'm just going to cut some strips of paper. Now the wider your strip, the wider your bead is going to be. Can you see that? And the longer your strip, the the rounder your bead is going to be. It's not going to be it's not going to be small and kind of flat and long. It's going to be rounder, and I'll show you what I mean. So I've got my paper here. I'm going to start this one by just wrapping it around my skewer here, okay? And you have to wrap it around the skewer because that's what's going to leave the hole. I've got one here. That's what's going to leave the hole that you can put your string through, your wire through, whatever it is that you are going to use to string it or to use it as a bead. I'm going to start it without glue. If you have glue all over it, it's going to end up sticking to your skewer, and you don't want it to stick to your skewer. You want it to be able to kind of free move on here. Now I am going to just take my Elmer's glue and run a little bit of a line almost to the end, not quite. And as I'm wrapping, since I only have a really one thin line, it's going to spread as I wrap it, and I'm wrapping it tightly. You can see I have my my pointer finger underneath so that it doesn't go anywhere, and I can pull it and straighten it a little bit as well. I keep wrapping, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Actually, those edges that don't quite meet up or match up, they make for an interesting bead because you see a little bit of color behind it. Okay, now I've gotten to the end of that line. I like to wait till I'm almost done, and then I can finish it off by adding that one a little bit of bigger line through there. Now you can see I'm going to have a little bit of marker on my finger because I used my marker, and marker comes off when you do glue. And I'm going to have a little bit of glue on my finger as well, but actually it's already dry. Don't worry about that because it'll wash right off. Okay, not to worry. So this is moving around pretty good on my skewer. I think I can actually just kind of take this off, and I've got a bead already. So let's try, now you can see how wide this bead is going to be, or how thick this bead is going to be. This one's a little thicker, probably because my strip of paper was longer, because I had to wrap it more, right? I have some, this is some like scrapbook paper, okay? Or I don't know what else to call it, scrapbook paper. And I'm going to, once again, start with my skewer and wrap it maybe twice around before I put my glue on. Not quite to the end and not the whole thing, just a line down the center so I can control it. And now I am going to continue wrapping, and you can see this one, it gets a little thinner as we get to that tip there. And that's kind of cool because it leaves behind, and you can see I have a little bit too much glue, but that's all right. I'm just going to keep wrapping it. It kind of leaves behind that variation of color on the edges there, which I like. So I've now got it off my skewer. I'm just going to set it on my wax paper to dry because that glue won't go anywhere. I'm going to get a paper towel and wipe off my finger just a bit too. Okay, how about a triangle? Same thing. Wrap it a couple times with around my skewer. Just a little bit of glue, a line of glue down the center. You can see how it spreads out as I move it around my skewer. And I've got that nice little point. Ooh, I like that. And some of the fun of this is the surprise of seeing what it is that gets left behind, what colors come out and what colors don't. This had a little bit of purple and a little bit of red, and it kind of left, since it had the point, or the triangle, the top of the triangle comes to a point. You kind of see how that left behind an interesting design on my bead. This is the one that has that very kind of that swerved or curved edges on it. This is wrapping paper. And I had a really nice piece of wrapping paper here. I just kind of cut out one of the edges, and again, roll it a couple times. A little glue down the center. Just a little line of glue. Trying to keep it straight as I curl it around my skewer. Wrap it, I'm going to wrap it a couple times around. This one's a little tighter. I'm going to be really careful about pulling it off. And sometimes if it doesn't come off easily, just leave it on your skewer or on your toothpick. Here's one that was just on the toothpick. I left it on the toothpick to dry, and it's just black and white print. Here's some more black and white print here. I am going to, actually I think that might be kind of interesting. I'm just going to cut a strip of paper, black and white. And obviously, oh, I'm looking at this piece of paper, and what I see on the back side, not on the front side that is going to be curled around my skewer, is what I'm going to end up with. So what's last on here, which is going to be all white, my bead will be all white if I'm not careful, and I turn it around the other way and wrap. And now at the end, you can see I'm going to have that nice black and white, okay, the print. So I'm going to put my little line of glue, wrap, looks like my edges went ahead and finished up for me, so I've got another nice bead there. And you can go on and on and on. The sky's the limit. You can see how this works, right? You can make all sorts of different colors of beads. Rounded beads are not going to work here because they're wrapped around. The closest you can come to a rounded bead is something like this, and this is maybe a shorter, thinner strip of paper, not a thick strip of paper, and it was long. For this one, I used, where is it? I used map. I used some map paper. Here's map paper here. And all I did was cut a strip, and actually this is really, map paper is a really nice weight for my beads. And I kind of like the colors that it leaves behind. This time I'll use a toothpick, and you can see the strip that I cut isn't perfect, but that's okay. That kind of makes it look interesting. Now you can see that it's a little tougher with a toothpick. For one thing, the toothpick is thinner, and also I don't have as much room to hold onto, but it'll work. I'm going to wrap it carefully here. And you can see my bead, is going to be thicker because I have a longer strip of paper. I'm going to carefully keep wrapping with trying to keep my hand out of my fingers out of the glue in the center. As for some of you, it may be easier to just place it on your wax paper itself, and then it'll help guide it. Instead of holding it up, you may want to, and you're going to have to use one hand to support it and another to roll it. I don't know, for me it's easier to just kind of hold it up. But for some of you, especially you younger students, it may be easier for you to put it down on the table. And the table is the thing that's kind of securing it rather than your other hand. Then, I don't know, there we go. I'm going to wrap it. See, my end doesn't have any glue on it, so I'm just going to put just a touch of glue on the outside edge, and I've got my bead. There we go. Oh, I'm still not happy with that glue. All right, just a little bit more glue here. Okay. The other things you can use, again, I'm going to bring out my pattern. All the catalogs, paper works really well. You've got lots of colors in there for what the dresses look like or what the clothes look like or whatever kind of a catalog it is. The color there is interesting. Color books. If you want to take a page out of a color book that you started to, that you colored already, that makes a really nice bead. Let's see, I've got one here I did. I don't know where it ended up in my bucket here of beads, but maybe it's on my necklace here. Is it on my necklace? No. I don't know where that, oh, I know where it is. Here it is. Perhaps it's in here. There it is, right here. That's what it ended up with. I cut what I colored on this color page, and you're not going to see all of the design. All you're going to get out of it is the color. And then again, just simple magazines, all of that works. So how to finish these? Okay, you can see I've got this one here that I started to string. You can string it on just about anything. These I strung on kite string. Okay, and kite string actually works really nicely. It's not too heavy, it's not too wide, it's not too thin. If you're going to use regular thread, that's a little bit too thin. Plus you're going to need a needle if you do that. And some of you can handle a needle or have parents that have needles, and that would work if all you have is thread. Maybe double up your thread, so do it 2 times. You can use a ribbon, works really nicely, because these are going to, if you use a skewer, this is kind of thinner ribbon. If you use a skewer, it should go through that bead. Now this isn't quite as thin as I would like, but we can take our scissor and thin it out just a little bit, and then it should run through our bead. There, that's better. The other thing you can do in order to make this go through a little easier, and I like to do this with string, is to add some glue. Oh, and here we've got twine, that'll work, is to add some glue to the end of the string. So if I cut my kite string here, and of course do it on wax paper here, just take a bead of glue, a little bit of glue, and run it down that string. And I went about 1 inch. You could go, actually, I think I'm going to do just a little bit more than 1 inch. And yes, it's getting all over my fingers, but I'm twisting it so it stays stuck together. And I'm just going to let that sit on my wax paper to dry. And here's one that I already did, and you can see that it is nice and stiff, and it has a point to it. So it will bead through really quickly and easily. That's a really nice way of getting kind of a firm end to your string, so you can bead through it really quickly. And then all you have to do is just tie it off, and you're all set and good to go. If some of you, same thing is true if you have yarn. All of these things apply to yarn, these rules. And some of you maybe already have wire. This is some memory wire that I had that you could use. Wire is easy. You don't have to do anything other than just run it through. And I also have some recycled wire. If some of us are getting packages and what have you, and this can be, I don't know, these are kind of like twisties that held something together, and you can use that as well. This will just run right through. So those are ways for you to string. Now some of you maybe want to, I personally like my my beads kind of the finish that they already are. But some people like to make their beads nice and shiny, like you would get in the store. And if you want to do that, you can use a couple of different things. One is Mod Podge, and this is kind of a heavy-duty glue. All you have to do is, and you can see, it's just like glue. And actually you could use this too as your Elmer's glue. It's a little messy. You're going to want to take a brush and brush it on, but it leaves kind of a shiny finish to it. Let me see if I can get a brush here. It'll work. Just take and brush that. Don't worry about your fingers. They will clean up. Put it off to the side to dry, and you'll have a nice shiny finish. Mod Podge is very similar to what we call this matte medium, which is kind of a glue as well. You can get shiny medium as well if you're going to the art store to get things. The other thing you can use is clear fingernail polish. I know people who have done that. I'm not quite so excited about clear fingernail polish, but it is possible to do. I think if I were to use fingernail polish, I would probably, of course, definitely leave it on my wax paper, but I would very carefully do one side, let it dry, and then turn it over and do the other side, or roll it and do the other side. But of course, this is, fingernail polish is a bit of a dangerous thing, and it will get everywhere, and and it's permanent. This kind of stuff, the glues and things, are not quite so permanent. So that's probably what I would recommend. But you can use fingernail polish. So that wraps it up for our paper beads. I hope that you come up with some really interesting beads and play with your paper, play with the shape of your paper. Just use strips if you just want to use strips. If you want to, I've seen things where you put two triangles together and then wrap them. Of course, the more complicated the design on your bead, the more, or the shape of your bead, the more difficult it is for your fingers to wrap it, and that might take a little bit of time. But this is something you can do all summer long. And think about, when you're thinking about colors too, think about having them all kind of match. Mine are kind of a mix match here, except for if I were to continue on with the beads that I have in reds and blues and purples and all of that, they would all match. So I would have a necklace that matched in all the same colors. You can use just black and white paper and see how that comes out. You could take a page off of a color book and use that. So the sky is the limit, and it's kind of a fun project when you're not don't have anything else to do. You can just cut up some paper and start twirling and turning some beads on your skewers or your toothpicks. I hope you have a fantastic summer, a beautiful summer. I hope that I get to see you again next year. This is going to be our last art project, I think, until the school year that comes back up again. I may surprise you though and put up another couple here and there if I have these brilliant ideas, or if I see some of you on the street, say hi and tell me that you want to see another video, and I may just do that over the summer as a surprise. Subscribe to my channel and you will be able to see the new videos if I do put one up. And I have some great ideas that I'm thinking I might share with you. But for right now, this is it for the summer. I hope you have a fantastic summer and you're not too bored if with our in place, and you're able to go visit and maybe see some grandparents or some friends and have some play dates. That's what I'm hoping to do. So until the next time, I hope you make some beautiful things. So take care.